Good morning, Bravehearts, and good morning, Garfield, New Jersey. Welcome to the very first episode of Marv in the Morning. Yeah, man, it feels good to be back on a podcast again, or working on a project in general. Yeah, so forgive me if I'm in awe of actually pulling it off. You know, I've been running this business for 7 years now. It's incredible. The adventure it's been has been incredible, absolutely incredible. And but the busier we get, the less time I have to create projects of my own and kind of be creative in my own space. So this is a great thing. I feel like I can have my cake and eat it too with this podcast, or I don't even know if you really want to call this a podcast, because really it's more like just a YouTube live series. But for sure, absolutely for sure, it's fun. It's just been fun just setting up all of this, just getting back into the groove and the mindset where I have to create again. Create for my personal usage, right? And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. I love doing it. Since I was a kid, I've always loved to create. I mean, I was a Lego kid. I had the Lego kids and I used to build my own thing with it. I never really followed the instruction manual. And mostly because I was missing most of the pieces anyway, right? Because most people think, oh, my kid's so creative. He builds his own thing with the Legos. But realistically, your kid probably loses half of the pieces and he has to build his own thing, right? Not to be a cynic about it. But yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell. But yeah, it's awesome being back. It's Labor Day, so happy Labor Day to everybody. I mean, I hope everyone has a nice day off. This might seem like I'm working to some people, but actually, right after this, I had the day free, so it's not too bad. I feel like it's a great day to start, though. I think September always gave off the vibes of like the new year for me. I feel like this is really when the new year starts for me, because new ideas come in. I meet new people, new people enter the studio, new podcasts are creative, new creatives are introduced to me. I just love the whole September, fall, autumn vibe. It's definitely my favorite time of the year. And it's probably the time of the year where I get the most excited too. So yeah, man, feels good to be back. Happy September, happy autumn, happy Labor Day, all that jazz. So what are the goals with Marv in the Morning, pretty much? What are we aiming for over here? Let me take off the headphones real quick. What are the goals with Marv in the Morning? Essentially, I get asked all the time about podcasting advice, tips, ideas, things that can help out people that record here and the people that are starting their own podcast. Like, what are the best things to start? What are the tips you can give me, considering you've been doing this for almost 10 years now? And rather than create a spreadsheet or whatnot, I figured, let's create a podcast series. Let's create a YouTube live series about it. We'll go live on YouTube every morning, discussing podcast tips, tricks, and ideas, the knowledge I've gained over the span of time that I've been doing this. And, then I could refer people to this series when it comes time when I get asked those questions. Like, hey, go check out on YouTube. We have like a podcasting 101 series. It's called Marv in the Morning. I will make shorter versions of these videos too. That way they are, easier playback for some people. They just want to get the information and go. So that's coming too. That is definitely coming as well. But yeah, that's the goal with it, to educate and to have fun with it. I feel like I've entered adulthood for real once turning 30, and it was like, okay, I had a lot of fun creating in my 20s. I had a lot of fun finding myself and finding this dream and this goal. And, I still want to have fun with it. I don't want to turn it into 100% work, even though it definitely is. But I want to definitely have as much fun with it as possible, despite it being work, right? So this is why I have to inject a certain personality into what I'm doing too, and not just make it the generic YouTube tips video. Oh, here's 3 ideas you can use to make your podcast better. I definitely watch a lot of those too. So, but But yeah, let's have fun with it. Let's have laughs. Let's smile as we learn. You know, Sesame Street. I always tell people Sesame Street has the best formula for their show because they educate and they entertain simultaneously. Educate and entertaining simultaneously, and that's an awesome thing. You can be entertained and you can be educated at the same time, and whoever's doing it is doing a great job. Um, so before we even get started with the topic, and let me say the topic now while we're here. Um, this episode is called "What is the most important thing you need before starting a podcast?" The most important thing that I consider before starting a podcast. So when someone reveals their podcast name and ideas and themes to me, what is the first thing I think of that, oh, this podcast needs before even getting started? Um, so before we get there, though, let's get into some of the events and some of the things that are going on here in the studio. Shout out to my brother Ose, George, who's doing an awesome mural out there in our hallway space, the entrance space there. He's got the Keith Haring designs going up. He's stopping by periodically to kind of just add to it. It's a large scale project, and I definitely love the dude and admire his work. I remember the first day he started. I locked in to do a podcast. I left him out there. He had just gotten started, and I was locked in with that podcast. I think for like 2 hours, and then I walk out, and he erased everything he put on the wall. He painted over it. He painted it back black again. And I'm like, dude, what happened? And he says, I didn't like it. I wasn't happy with it, you know. And the dude's such a perfectionist and such an artist. I love the guy. I absolutely love him. And I'm not mad at him for all. Start right over if you have to, man. Do your thing. But right now it's coming out beautiful. So sometimes maybe you just need to kind of like throw something out there, see if it works. If it doesn't, start right over. You know, I was like, thank God. Because if he had to keep doing that, I'm like, you're buying them extra paint next time, bro. But it's coming out beautiful. At some point, I'll add pictures to this podcast so that you guys can see um, exactly how it's looking. I'm also going to add timestamps to the description of the video, too, so that people coming in and want to grab things and get out can do that, too, can skip ahead to the most important parts of them, right? It's also in September. We don't have a lot of events going on in September till the end, but right there at the end of September, the last Saturday of the month, we're gonna have a Rival Fools Street Fighter tournament, Street Fighter event. I don't know if it's actually gonna be a tournament. It might just be a casuals day. I've been loving working with these guys. Shout out to Johnny Fraze. Shout out to Clev. Shout out to Patty. They are the holy trinity of the New Jersey Street Fighter scene. To me, at least, I think they are awesome trio. I've worked with Clev since back when we first got the studio. Back when I first created my first YouTube channel, I went right to him for the logo, and man, did I love that logo he made for me, bro. That was awesome to have known somebody at that skill level that was around that I could like go to for art. It was awesome. I've never imagined that would be within my grasp to be able to work with someone like that. So love the logo he did for me back then. Still hit him up now and there, here and there for logos and things like that. So really admire the guy. Johnny, I'm coming to know now. Johnny and Patty are awesome personality wise. Johnny actually is the guy has worked on some amazing projects in the music space too. I guess design space too. He's designing the headphones for Evo and everything like that. You know, one thing that I really want to build with them is a nice, good bond and camaraderie. You know, I like to build camaraderie with the people I work with. That's like the most important thing, more so than anything else. If we could build a nice bond, a friendship out of it too, a camaraderie, you know, that's what I'm definitely here for all the time. That's my thing. And listen, if you're just tuning in now, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that notification bell. Make sure you give us a thumbs up. Leave a comment in the chat. One thing that I also want to do this podcast or this YouTube series is take questions from the chat. I mean, most of these questions might be a quick answer, or it might turn into a whole different episode. You might give me an idea for a whole new episode. So if you have questions about podcasting, or you just have a question for me in general, maybe maybe something that you've always wondered about the business or about myself, feel free to throw that in there. But yeah, give us a like, give us a sub, and throw some love in the chat. Okay. So, this week also, we had some new podcasts in the building this week. We had a new podcast in the building this week. We Outside After Work. Shout out to them. They gave me a great shout out on their show. First time here, and they already felt so warm and welcoming to work with them. Shout out to Dana. Shout out to Aaron. Aaron's name has 2 A's. Make sure you get that right. I don't know how people misspell Aaron. I feel like that's the most commonly thought of name when you think of a double letter right at the beginning of a name. But shout out to Aaron, shout out to Dana. They had a great show yesterday. They had 2 great shows, actually. Recorded 2 sessions yesterday. So, yeah, that was awesome, too, working with them. They were speaking on international dating, and also they were speaking on some things that I, remembered from my childhood, kind of, thinking about it. So make sure you check them out. I don't think the video's out yet, but you can follow them on Instagram. We Outside After Work. Check them out. Maybe I need to put a ding every time I say the word check them out, right? We'll see. We'll see what happens there. But without further ado, let's get to the meat and potatoes, right? What is the most important thing you need before starting a podcast? What is the most important thing you need before starting your podcast? I think more so than even equipment, more so than co-hosts, more so than having a studio, more so than having a script, the most important thing, without a doubt, to me, what I consider to be, maybe someone will tell you differently, what I consider to be most important thing is having a niche. Having a niche for your podcast. What's a niche? How do you describe a niche? What is it? I'm not even going to try to, I don't know if I could even articulate on my own. Yo, Spin the Block podcast. What's up? Loving the set, showing up. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. Shout out to Spin the Block. So yeah, what is a niche? All right. So I'm not even going to pretend to articulate it on my own here. I'm going to go to Google and tell you exactly what they consider to be a niche, which is their number 2 definition. A specialized segment of the market for a particular kind of product or service. So having a niche is pretty much specializing in something. Thanks for the support. Appreciate you. Having a niche is just about specializing in something. What is your podcast specialize in? Who is the audience for your podcast? Who are you doing this for? I often tell people, if you want to know what your niche is, look at yourself. Okay, so let's look at Marv for a second here. Let's break down who Marv is without kind of feeling like you're in a box or generalizing who you are. But it's essentially going to help you grow. It helps you grow by finding an audience that will become loyal followers to your podcast. And I don't like the word loyal followers together because it sounds kind of culty, but a loyal following. Let's say that maybe that sounds better. Okay, so we break down who Marv is. Marv is 33 years old. He's Hispanic, particularly of Dominican descent. And he's sort of like a tech junkie or a nerd, right? Just quick parentheses. Geez, I remember when nerd was such a bad word. I got in trouble for calling somebody a nerd in first grade, like really bad trouble. Now it's like a general thing, a compliment almost in some places, right? Let me turn this up a little bit. Yeah, like a compliment almost in some places, right? Yeah, right. Spin the block. But so so let's look at Marv. Marv is a nerd. He's 33 years old. He's Hispanic, particularly of Dominican descent, and he's a male. He's a male or a man, right? So maybe that's the niche right there. This podcast is for nerdy men in their, even Hispanic nerdy men in their 30s. Now, let's look at a reverse one. Okay, so this podcast could be for Asian pregnant women dealing with childbirth or I forgot the term for it, but The thing you want to do is you want to definitely narrow in as much as possible with your niche. If you call your podcast, this is a nerdy podcast, a nerd podcast, that is a huge and broad general statement. Like, your podcast can't be for all nerds because all nerds are different. You get me? My podcast can't be for all Hispanic people because all Hispanic people are different. My podcast can't be for everybody because if I'm trying to cater to everyone, that I'm catering to no one, right? Something that I watch, which is Drink Champs, which is probably my favorite podcast, probably what got me into this business, right? I watch Drink Champs religiously. Who is Drink Champs for? Drink Champs is for like older hip hop heads, that's who it's really for. And I'm an older hip hop head, so I love it. I'm in my 30s, you know what I mean? The people they were interviewing on there are people that older hip hop heads want to see. You kind of want to see Irv Gotti say wild stuff, and you kind of want to see Nori talk to legends of hip hop. It's for the legends, right? But you definitely want to do it for someone. You can't do your podcast for everyone, or no one will like it. I can't talk about Batman one episode and then talk about Tesla another episode, because the guy that's here for Tesla, he's not going to check back in if I'm talking about Batman next week. The guy that's here for Batman, he's not going to check back in if I'm speaking about cars next week. He's going to be like, I thought this podcast was about Batman. You know what I mean? Narrow down your niche and find your niche. Okay, let me just pause right there because I just know that I said niche and niche backwards, or not backwards, but differently each time. I don't even know the right pronunciation for it. I'm going to use niche. This is a fact. Yeah, bingo. You want to definitely narrow in your niche. Let's just keep niche. I think niche sounds sayable without me messing it up, right? Narrow it down. That is the most important thing. Once you find your niche, narrow it down. Narrow it down as much as possible. Narrow down age ranges. If you're 35, if you're 30, say your podcast is for people from 25 to 35. Usually like a 10-year span is a safe amount to say my podcast is for. If you're black, you can say my podcast is for black people of 25 to 30 that listen to hip hop or that are into comic books. My most successful podcast that I have here in the studio is that One Piece Talk. They are an anime podcast, pretty on the surface, but once you look at what their show is called, it's called That One Piece Talk. And they don't talk about every anime. They only speak on One Piece. That is their only podcast that they speak on. Only show that they speak on, forgive me. Only show that they speak on. One Piece. There's 1,000 anime out there with all different thousands of different fan bases. But because they narrowed it down to one, their growth has been incredible. Because when I tune in every week, I know what I'm getting into. If I'm a One Piece fan, when I just want to hear about One Piece and nothing else, that's where I go. Even look at local businesses. Businesses that specialize in something do better than businesses that say, oh, I do everything. Okay, so here's how we're going to figure out why doing everything is bad. The jack of all trades, right? Master of none. Why is that bad in the podcast world or just in the internet in general? When I first started, I don't know who I got it from, but the term was, don't be a Renaissance man on the internet. Out in the open, being a Renaissance man is awesome. But on the internet, it's horrible. And I'm going to tell you why. We need to stop thinking of the internet as a database and start thinking of it more as a library, right? When you enter a library, right? You enter it. You have sections and there's all categories everywhere. The Dewey Decimal System and all that jazz, right? You have one section for science fiction. You have one section for, let's say, comic books. One section for historical books. One section for autobiographical, biographical. You have categories all over. The library is not just go in and dig and hopefully you can find a book, right? Now, the internet, even YouTube, these platforms that we use are also categorized. Forgive me. Categorized. They're categorized and they're sectioned off, right? We may think, okay, YouTube is just a giant database where I can find anything I'm looking for. No, that is not the case. There is a hidden desert in YouTube of dead videos, dead podcasts, dead content that you will never stumble across because this wasn't properly categorized, labeled, or sectioned off. And why wasn't it properly categorized? Because YouTube does not even know where to place this. It doesn't even know what it is. Because one week this YouTube channel is speaking on, like I said, cars. The next week it's speaking on Batman. Apple is the same thing. Apple and Spotify. Apple has sections. You want to look at podcasts that are autobiographical. You want to look at comedy podcasts. You want to look at anime podcasts. It's all like sectioned off and labeled and placed into a category. If your podcast has no category, then Apple, Spotify, YouTube, they don't know where to place you. And why is that so bad? All right, well, I'll just share the link. Sharing the link is only going to open you up to people who already follow you. Sharing the link is not going to present you to a new audience. The way new audience is going to find your podcast is by me walking into the library, going to the science fiction section because I'm a science fiction fan, and stumbling across your book there because now your book is next to Star Wars. You know, and I know this is a very, very generalized story or whatever, but now your book is next to Star Wars on the shelf. And I'm like, that cover looks interesting. That topic looks interesting that they're speaking of. I'm going to pick up this book. I'm going to walk out the library with it. I'm actually going to take this book that I stumbled across of. The same thing happens with YouTube, Apple, Spotify. You know, categories, right? If I am watching, let's say I watch a lot of fighting game YouTube videos. I'm a big FGC guy. I watch a lot of Maximilian Dude. I find other fighting game channels by watching him because of the list on the side there. I'm having a brain fart. What are the recommendations, right? The recommended videos. Recommended videos are very, very, very important to being stumbled upon, or even showing up on the front page. Showing up on the front page of YouTube can do enormous things for your podcast. Showing up on the front page of Apple, same thing. Apple even more. Apple is the number one used platform for podcasting. Number one, the most listeners. Yo, Osei in the chat, how's it going, my brother? I gave you a shout out earlier, and I spoke about your mural. So, yeah, man, how you doing, broski? But yes, you need to have a niche. You need to have a niche, and you want to be as narrow as possible with it. Narrow it down. Narrow it down as much as possible. And the common complaint when I tell people this is that, well, I don't want to put myself in a box. I don't want to just do one thing weekly. I don't want to speak on only one thing on this podcast weekly. And the truth of the matter is, if you want to grow, then you need to do this. You need to categorize yourself. You need to have a niche. But the beauty of it is that once you reach a certain level, you will be able to speak on everything. You will be able to branch out. You'll be able to open up what you're doing into other areas, because now you've developed a loyal fan base. You found the fan base in general, which a lot of content on the internet doesn't find. You found a fan base in general. So now you're open to doing other things. Hey, you got a 10,000 subscribers and 10,000 followers on Apple and Spotify. Yo, you can do anything now. Well, let's not be too hasty to say that, but you can do a lot more. You can speak on a lot more, and these viewers, followers will watch you do other things. Now they've developed more than just interest in what you're speaking on. Now they've developed an interest in who you are, and now they've become your friend. I didn't understand before the psychology of why do people watch people play video games on the internet? That just sounds ridiculous. Why wouldn't you just play the game yourself? And I've come to understand that the reason that, kids or even some adults do this is because they have a friend online. Watching a Twitch streamer beat a game is like having a pen pal. This is my buddy. This is the guy that I watch play video games. I talk to him weekly while he's playing. And it reminds me of when I was a kid. I used to watch my older cousins beat video games, and I never wanted to play them myself. I just used to admire just watching them do it. So shout out to Jesse, man. Shout out to Jesse and Gamal. But yeah, Well, I don't know how far we strayed off there. Yeah, once you get big, you can expand and you can do more. You can escape the box you had to put yourself in to begin with, if you even consider it that. I don't like to consider it that. I think if you feel like you're putting yourself into a box, then maybe whatever you want to do a podcast about is not what you need to do a podcast about. Because there are some things that I can speak on all the time. If I were to do a Star Wars podcast, forget about it. I would be able to speak on that 7 days a week, 24 hours each of those days, 25 even. I could do a Star Wars podcast and I could speak on that all the time. And I would never feel like I'm in a box and I'm bored because I don't like just speaking on the same thing every week. You know, I don't like just speaking on the same thing every week. No, because that's something that I love. That's something I can speak on all the time. If I do a podcast upon like 90s hip hop, you know, I don't want to just say hip hop because hip hop is so broad and wide that if your podcast is only about hip hop, you need to narrow that down. There's so many little genres in hip hop. Just think of how rock and roll is. If I say I listen to rock and roll, all right, what kind of rock and roll? You know, you got metal, punk, you got ska, you got grunge. You have to narrow it down. You're doing hip hop. Are you talking about drill? Are you talking about modern hip hop? Are you speaking about 80s, 90s? Or are you speaking on like alternative hip hop? Are you part of like the consciousness hip hop? Like what section of hip hop are you speaking of? You know what I mean? You have to narrow it down. But yeah, guys, for those that are watching, you know, thank you everybody for just tuning in. Once again, I'm gonna ask that you guys hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, and yeah, show some love in the chat too, man. And if you have any questions along the way, feel free to ask. Throw any questions you have in the chat, and I'll try to get to them all. You know, feel free. And then just show love in general if you're gonna show love too. If it's just something that I can answer right away, I'll answer right away. Or if it's something maybe that can develop into a whole episode. Because, listen, we're doing this daily, Monday through Friday, so. But yes, narrow it down. Okay. So, on to the next one, right? What happens? Just checking the clock there. What happens when you just don't want to do it? When you say, I want to do a podcast, I love speaking, but I do not want to narrow down what I'm doing. I do not want to have a niche. I want to get on there and speak on whatever I want, whenever I want. I want to do a barbershop podcast. That's what I call them, a barbershop podcast, right? A barbershop where they speak on everything. You walk into a barbershop, they can be speaking about music. They can be speaking about politics, sports. Barbershop podcast is what I call them, right? So if you're just hell-bent on creating a barbershop podcast, that is totally 100% cool. There is nothing wrong with it. As much as or as important as having a niche is, maybe you just can't think of one. Maybe you just can't narrow down what your ideas. Where you will be at a loss at that point is your growth. It's gonna take a lot longer for you to grow. And what you do at that point, I think that I've seen my podcast here do, the ones that just cannot narrow down their ideas. What you do at that point is you collaborate with other barbershop podcasts. You collaborate with them. That way, if they have a following and you have a following, that you guys combine each other's following. You Voltron it, right? That's what I like to say. You Voltron it. There's no real wrong way to podcast. There's no real wrong way to do it. I totally recommend having a niche. I think you'll grow faster. And once you grow to a point where you can speak about more things, you're going to be a lot happier. But definitely, without a doubt, there's nothing wrong with doing a barbershop style. Nothing wrong with that at all. Or even doing it for fun. Listen, not every podcast needs to make money. Not every podcast needs to be a business. I've recorded plenty of people here in Bravery Studios where it's just been, I'm just doing this for fun. I'm just doing this to have a place to talk with my friends, you know. I have 30-year-old men that might come here, and this is like their poker night. They're not playing poker at the table, but I mean, this is their therapy where they just get together and just speak on what's on their mind. You know, they want to speak about music one week. Cool, we're going to speak on music. They want to speak about politics. They want to speak about headlines. Bravery up. We got Jason Enrique in the Brave chat. How you doing, my bro? We're gonna have you on here soon too, bro. Yes. Once again, there is totally nothing wrong with doing it barbershop style. Nothing wrong with it at all. It's gonna take a lot longer to grow, and you might have to work a little bit harder. But if that's what you want to do, you can't tell creative what to do. Really, you really can't. So if that's what you want to do, then do it. Like I said, if you're going to go that route, then collaborate a lot. Bring a lot of guests on. Have them share the show with you. Have them promote it with you. Collaborate with other podcasts that are doing similar things. But there's totally nothing wrong in doing it barbershop style. I know a lot of them. I probably know more barbershop style podcasts than I know niche podcasts, right? And that's totally fine. Totally fine. And I know some podcasts that just do it for fun. Hey, I need a place to get away from the wife for a couple hours. Hey, that's totally fine, man. Maybe you just want to listen back on your own conversations with your friends. A lot of podcasts start with friends saying like, yo, we have really good conversations. We should record this and turn it into a podcast. A lot of podcasts start that way. And that's fine. That's totally cool. That's totally cool. Listen, like I said, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with it. And there's no wrong way to podcast. There are methods that you can use for growth. And, but there's really no wrong way to do this. It really, as long as podcasting has been around, it hasn't been around that long. For as long as it's been around, it hasn't even been around that long. And we're still in the Wild West phases. It's getting more structured and it's becoming more of an institutionalized thing, right? But we're still in the Wild West phase. And you still can do this your own way for now. There's other mediums and other genres where you can't do that anymore. So you definitely are open to do it your own way. Make it yours and have fun with it on top of that. I probably should say what's the second most important thing when doing a podcast, right? Is that you're having fun. Make sure it's fun. If this is becoming work for you, or maybe it's for your business and it is work, that's fine too. But yeah, I mean, even what I'm doing right now, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't get some fun out of it. I wouldn't be doing this if I would have, is there still a fairly new market? Yeah, bingo. Mondo knew. I really wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't fun. It's fun, man. Like collaborating with Jason Enrique. The people I've met and this business and doing this, I wouldn't trade that for anything. So this is still fun, man. This is still fun, and I love listening too. I love listening. I love doing it. I just love doing it. But yes, of course, to recap. What do I consider to be the most important thing to have before starting a podcast is having a niche. Can you do a podcast without a niche? You can. It's going to be a lot harder to grow, but you can do it. But more importantly, as long as you're having fun, then just have fun with it. That's the most important thing. The internet is like a library. Having a niche will put your podcast next to other podcasts that are similar, and audiences will find it easier. But at the same time, if you can't put yourself into a box, or will you consider to be put in a box if you do that, then hey, it's cool. Do your thing. But yes, indeed, man. Marv, the producer, if I didn't say it in the beginning of the video, right? Yeah, doing a podcast for fun. What I'm doing now, I guess you can think of the niche of what I'm doing now. I'm kind of doing it for my podcasters and doing it for myself. I love creating, and this is giving me an outlet to educate, and it's also giving me an outlet to speak, to kind of have my own creative space. Because one day I could walk in here and I could just have fun with the design behind me. I put a boombox back there and my samurai swords, particularly just for the fun of it, because those are pieces of my personality. So yeah, I have fun with it. I have tons of fun with it. Tons of fun. But yeah, this was cool. And I didn't know how long these episodes were going to be honest with you. I just kind of wanted to go up and see what would happen. But yeah, if you're watching now, once again, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you give it a thumbs up. We're gonna be creating a Discord for this too soon, maybe Discord, so you guys can ask me questions off stream, or if you have any questions now, guys, you can put them in the chat too. Feel free to ask me any questions, or feel free to show love. We are gonna be doing this a lot, so if we want to get into it before we hit that old dusty trail, happy Labor Day again for everybody that's coming in now. What is going to be the next episode? What are we speaking about next episode? Okay. The next episode is going to be, why am I getting less and less views/listens on each episode? And that podcast is going to be for people that are in that direct space. Usually that happens to a lot of newer podcasts. So I've been doing the show for a while, but definitely learned new information from this live. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm definitely tuning in every day. Appreciate that, Spin the Block. We got to get you here in the studio. I mean, eventually I want to get to the point of having guests on this show too, where they can give their tips, their ideas, their opinions. Give me what's your most important thing? Because this is mine. Having a niche is what I consider to be the most important thing when starting a podcast. But give me yours. And give me your tips and tricks, right? So eventually we're going to start having guests. I already promised I have to have Jason on first. Jason definitely is the guy. But yeah, considering if you have an open morning one time, let's chop it up. Message me on Instagram and we'll chop it up, bro. But yes, next episode. Why am I getting less and less views/listens with each episode? So that's tomorrow. All right. But yeah, shout out to everybody that records here at Bravery Studios. Shout out to the journey. Most definitely, we'll love it anytime. Yeah, we'll connect, man. We'll connect. Shout out to everybody that records here at Bravery Studios. Shout out to Ella's Girls Next Door, Goodfellas Podcast, We Outside After Work, 973 Vibes, That One Piece Talk, the Banco Latino TV, Ocho Hills Wrestling Podcast, Players Only Podcast, It's Friday Super, the Mina Mendoza Show, the You Go Boy Podcast, the Street Approved Podcast, Dining with Nadiva. I'm gonna get crucified if I forget one. But shout out to everybody that records here. Love them all. These are all not just clients but family to me. And hey, shout out to Scarlett for stopping in. Hey Scarlett, how's it going? But yes, shout out to everybody that records here. Shout out to Scarlett. Shout out to the community we built here. Shout out to Matt. Shout out to Will. Shout out to Steve. Shout out to Scooter, Scarlett. Everybody that walks through these walls and brings love through those walls, of Bravery Studios. I'm extremely proud of the community we've built here, and I wouldn't trade this for anything. If I could be anywhere in the world doing anything else, I'd be right here doing exactly what I'm doing right now. Also, shout out to Prototype. Prototype is our sister studio in Patterson. I spend so much time there. If I'm not here, I'm probably there most of the time. So shout out to Matt over there. We are working on a 420 friendly room space over there, which is pretty much set and done. I just have to add it to my website now. But we are definitely collaborating a lot with them over there. And Matt, shout out to Afternoon FM. Matt is working on his Afternoon FM podcast. We did I guess what we consider a test episode. And I absolutely loved it. I loved where it ended too. It ended on a cliffhanger almost. But he reworked it, retweaked it, which I knew he would. Matt just seems like that dude that he's got to apply some sort of abstractness to it or eccentricness to it. And let's say eccentricness to it. And I admire the dude. I admire everything Matt does, and I admire that space. I tell you, if I wasn't here, I'd probably be there. If I didn't have Bravery Studios, I'd probably be at Prototype. That's without a doubt. And yeah, if you guys are looking to start a podcast, come to Bravery Studios. We offer hourly sessions and we offer monthly memberships where we handle the uploading, the editing, the thumbnails, any graphics. Pretty much here at Bravery Studios, with our memberships, we do all the work. All you have to do is come and speak. Speak your mind. Yeah, the studio was originally called Speak Your Mind Radio too, originally. But yeah, come to Bravery Studios. You do the talking. Let us handle the rest. And yeah, start your podcast here with us. Give me a call if you want a consultation. We have 30-minute tours through our website at braverystudios.com. And or just give me a call if you just want to chat it up, chop it up, I guess. I see my camera falling in and out of focus a lot, which I got to work on that. I love this camera. I have the Sony A7 here. I never intended to ever use it for podcasting, but I'm putting it through the paces, and it's doing a great job over there. Just falls in and out of focus from time to time. But yeah, I think we're going to end it here, guys. And I'm going to get the day started. Make sure you guys seize the day. Hey guys, it's Labor Day too, man. Enjoy it. I still don't know what I'm gonna get into today. No idea whatsoever. But seize the day and fight for the future. Fight for your dreams. And I always have this thing where I'm like, how do I end this now? What can I say that's cool? Well, Marv, you just said a whole bunch of cool stuff. Just end it there. Yeah, I just wish it rhymed a little bit and it fell off the tongue a little easier. That's all. I just wish it kind of fell off the tongue a little easier there. But yeah, Bravehearts. Stay brave. Never say game over. That's what I say on Twitch, honestly. But yeah, once again, hit that subscription button if you're watching the video. Give it a thumbs up and give it a share too. If you think that's someone that needs to see this, give it a share. And you'll be seeing highlights of this on Instagram and TikTok. So, all right, guys. Stay brave, fight for the future, seize the day, and we're out of here.